What's up guys, it's Nick 2 and today I want to go over what I think is one of the best Amon builds in the entire game, which allows you to literally one-shot pretty much anything, which is kind of crazy. And if there's any boss that happens to not get one-shotted, don't worry, you'll be able to use your forge skill and detonate him for literal millions of damage. On the target dummy, I can hit for up to 40 million dot damage every single tick, which is pretty insane. Amon's, I would say, biggest weakness is that usually for a lot of builds, you have to pick between either good mobbing or good bossing. You'll see a lot of videos where they'll only show boss clips or they'll only show mobbing. And I think where this build shines is that it is good for both bossing and mobbing. As you can see, I mean, bosses die literally instantly. And then the idea is to also be able to pretty much one-shot everything while mobbing too. I would say Amon is definitely the weakest of the Vault Hunters just because of the way that his skill tree is set up, usually having to pick between stuff that's going to work either on bosses or mobbing, and there's not a lot of stuff that kind of like works at the same time. So I've put a decent amount of time into kind of setting up the skill tree so we get the best of both worlds, so we'll have good enough damage for mobbing and the really high burst damage for bossing. You don't have to deal with like swapping your skill tree or doing all sorts of crap based on what you're doing. You can kind of just have a build that works all the time, and it is a ton of fun playing like a gun-based Amon build with a whole bunch of elemental damage added in. Before we get into the video, I want to give a big thanks to today's sponsor, ExitLag. ExitLag is a program with tons of features, but namely has the ability to drastically improve your connection, which is particularly nice in a game like Borderlands 4, where the online play can be quite laggy and often disconnects. With ExitLag, you can say goodbye to that pesky, constant desync rubber banding and enjoy a smooth gameplay experience with their AI-powered route optimization, always ensuring that you are on the best possible server with the best possible connection. Their multipath technology works to drastically reduce your ping in thousands of games, so no matter what you're playing, ExitLag has you covered. We also all unfortunately know how bad FPS can get in Borderlands 4, and with ExitLag new PC boost features, there's a ton of settings to improve your FPS, reduce input lag, optimize connection of course, and ensure that your PC is running at its full potential. If you don't believe me, you can try it out yourself completely for free with a 3-day free trial, where all you have to do is just create an account, download the software, choose your game and server, and then boom, you're good to start blasting with the best performance that you've ever had. And for a limited time, using my link in the description, you can get a full 50% off on an annual plan. It's a great way to support the channel, but more importantly, improve your experience in pretty much any game you play, whether it be competitive or casual. ExitLag has got your back. Alright, let's just get into it. The entirety of the build will be posted down below over at Melgalytics, and I'll have a full write-up of where to get certain legendaries, skill tree, all that stuff so you guys can easily reference it. The bread and the butter of this build is taking advantage of Dragon's Breath paired with Force of Nature. I'll talk about Force of Nature in a second because it turns out you can just one-shot bosses regardless of it, but this can do disgusting amounts of damage. But Dragon's Breath is insane. Basically, whenever you activate your ordnance, your next gunshot is converted into incendiary damage, and with 9 points into this, because I have some from my class mod, it's a 180% damage increase. So basically, we throw out our knife, and of course we are using the crit knife. I do want to say the crit knife is pretty good for this build, because we just need to do so much damage in one instance, and it just matches perfectly with the build. The crit knife is not bugged in any way, and I don't see it getting nerfed for the foreseeable future. You honestly could probably kill bosses fairly quickly even without it, but it just synergizes too well with this build to not use it. So we throw out our throwing knife there, and then all of our shots are going to be guaranteed crits, but also our next shot has a 180% increased damage. So then what we want to do is use something that does as much damage as humanly possible in just one shot, and that is going to be, lo and behold, a spread launcher shotgun, such as a Etold Looming Doulahan is what mine is, but just like a Jacob's purple shotgun. It can also roll on the Rainbow Vomit. I haven't seen a very high roll on a Rainbow Vomit just because the mag size is up there, but it's perfectly fine. Even if you had a little bit less damage, it would probably still be good enough to one-shot most bosses. So keep that in mind. Probably very low drop rate, but yeah, you really want a spread launcher. You can use something like the Oscar mic with the space laser as well. I just don't like it as much, and the damage is a little bit lower than that of the spread launcher. Then we of course use an amp Repkit so that this spread launcher shot that's getting double damage gets even further multiplied with another 200% increased damage. And then to make it even crazier, we can use an amp shield. This is kind of optional, but your first shot is going to do 100% gun damage, so I mean, why not, right? So as you can see here, if I just shoot this little target dummy, I pop my Repkit, I'll go into my action skill, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll go into the spread launcher, throw the knife, shoot him, and that's going to hit him for millions of damage. You can see I have a 2 million tick on him right there. And the damage there is pretty crazy, but where it gets even crazier is with Force of Nature. While your Onslaughter action skill is active, gun damage dealt to enemies will prime them. So they'll get this little debuff above their head, and then that's basically just going to like add detonations on top of them, stacking up to 10 times. And then whenever you damage them with a forward skill or they die, they're going to blow up and deal basically a percentage of the gun damage that you dealt to them. This is effectively taking a lot of the damage that you did with your spread launcher and then further multiplying it, because Force of Nature will double dip with all of your damage multipliers. So you can see here, if I decide to do the exact same combo that I just did and then actually use my forward skill, pull up the guy here and then use the forward skill, hitting for 50 million ticks. Yeah. Nothing is going to survive that. No boss is going to survive that. Doesn't matter if they are weak to fire damage, if they're Radix and they're like full armor, they are still going to just instantly die to that. Force of Nature is absolutely insane. And that's basically the bread and butter of our bossing. When it comes to mobbing, it's basically just a lot of damage that we're going to get in the skill tree, but also you can like spam throw out your throwing knives while mobbing. So anytime there's like a badass or a really high HP mob, you're going to have that extra damage increase. And you can also use your amp Repkit whenever you want and get that really juicy big bonus damage, which we're going to be pairing with a hot slugger, because this is just crazy for the build. Pairs perfectly with Dragon's Breath, as well as some other stuff that we have in the tree. So when it comes to the skill tree, we kind of have like a mixture of both boss DPS and mobbing. You kind of have to go into both a little bit, because otherwise one is just going to lack. But if you have like a perfect mix between the two, then you'll be just good enough for both, which I think is the perfect way to set it up, in my opinion. So first we go into what burns within, just some incendiary damage, and keep in mind that this will double dip with Force of Nature and with we'll double dip with Dragon's Breath, but we're gaining a whole bunch of our damage as incendiary damage as a result of Dragon's Breath. So this is just great 30% damage. Wield the Storm, very nice, increased status effect damage. This is purely for bossing. If you feel like your boss damage is high enough, like mine is, just one-shotting everything, you could opt to put 3 points instead into Impetus, because the movement speed and the shield regen is very good quality of life. So if I were personally playing this, I would do that, but I'd only do that once I'm comfortable one-shotting bosses. And in the meantime, this extra status effect damage is really good for your bossing. Bullet Storm, great, just increased gun damage, stacking all the time. And of course, we go 5 points into Dragon's Breath, and then we go 2 into Catastrophe, just to get you a little bit of crit damage, and Crackling Aegis to give you even more status effect damage based on your shield. This is mainly just to get further down into the tree so that we can get Stormcutter, which just makes your forge skill feel a lot more consistent. It's very easy to actually hit enemies with this, namely on bosses. If you have enough damage to where you don't need this, you could opt out of, I would say, Electrical Fire and Catastrophe, and then you could reorient those points maybe into Impetus or somewhere else on the tree, just give you some more generic damage. And then we go 5 into the Fray, just really some much needed damage reduction, and just straight up damage is quite nice. And then I put 1 point into Maiming Strike here. This just gives you a chance to apply weakness onto enemies, so they take 20% more damage, which is pretty good. Ideally, I probably would put at least another point into here, so it's 3, so that my spread launcher has a very high likelihood of actually applying the weakness here. But if you get like a better class mod than I have, then you'll be able to do that just fine. And I'm able to one-shot bosses regardless of this actually being active. This is basically a bossing thing. For mobbing, doesn't help out that much. Then we go into Berserk, which is where we're getting a massive amount of our mobbing DPS. Without this, our mobbing doesn't feel very good. It doesn't help us at all for bosses, because it requires us to use our forge skill to then give us bonus cryo damage with our guns. Our forge skill we want to save on bosses for our big nuke. And also, this bonus cryo damage gets scaled up with There Is Only Red, which is a kill skill, and on bosses, we're not really killing stuff. It kind of sucks. This is Amon's like Achilles heel, because this node is like so unbelievably strong for mobbing, but doesn't really help you on bosses. You can technically activate it on bosses if you use I Touches Death, and then you use Fist of Stone, and then you use a Slippy, and you get Ordnance cooldown, and you spam the boss with Slippy, but like, that's annoying, dude. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want damage all the time. So that's why I have it set up like this, because we get this extra like over double damage for mobbing with There's Only Red, and the duration restoration on it means you can be in this Berserk bonus damage pretty much 100% of the time. And anytime you may lose it, you can just pop your Forge skill again. Not a big deal. It is just unfortunate that we spend 8 points to not go into any more boss damage, but it's only 8 points at the end of the day, and we're able to weather the storm and still one-shot bosses regardless. Next tree, we go 5 into Executioner. This is kind of weak, honestly. You could do either Executioner or Gathering the Storm. And if you have enough damage, you could also go get the lead out just to increase your reload speed with your hot slugger, but I'll talk about that in a second because technically you don't need that. And then I go 4 into destruction engine just so you gain increased detonation damage. That helps you with your bossing if you are using force of nature, because this is going to do detonation damage. But if your bossing is fine, then yeah, I would just reorient these points probably into bolt action to just give you more mobbing damage, which actually is quite good. Get into the gear. So for mobbing, I think the hot slugger is just the best option. You get 90% increased damage all the time with it. It does crazy damage. It synergizes perfectly with Dragon's Breath. It's great. I've tried a Rainbow Vomit. It works. It's not bad. I just don't like it nearly as much as the Hot Slugger. I think the Hot Slugger is just better. I've also been told that the Anarchy Shotgun is quite good. Haven't used it myself, but feel free to try it out. I find it hard to believe anything is better than the Hot Slugger though, because it literally just one-shots everything and synergizes very well, especially with it being Jacob's and ricocheting, and the ricochets will full one-shot mobs as well. Of course, for our bossing, we have a spread launcher. You could go for a beam tosser weapon. It won't work as well, but it works okay. Or you could do an Oscar Mike with the space laser in the meantime too. Something you can do as well if your damage is pretty low is you could actually do multiple spread launchers. So before you go into a boss, you could have one spread launcher out. I'll do a little reset for you guys just to show you what it would look like. If your damage is like really weak or you don't have like a very high damage spread launcher, what you could do here is just rotate between 2 of them. To activate your action skill, pop your Repkit, throw the knife down, and then shoot, and then immediately swap to the next one. Repkit, knife, shoot, and then you could do your forge skill there. And you can see we got up to 64 million doing that. So that is pretty good. If you happen to like miss your spread launcher or something, it would be even more beneficial to just have 3 of them here, so you don't have to worry about lining up the perfect shot. You get multiple attempts at it. I figured it would be really annoying to try to line up the perfect shot, but you don't actually have to hit all projectiles in order to full one-shot bosses. The damage is so high that it's fine without it. I was worried about the build being like too gimmicky and annoying, but when I went to go and get boss clips for this video, I didn't fail a single time. I one-shot every single boss, so that made me very confident to post the video. In its current state, I don't think it is like gimmicky or annoying or like whatever, but even if it is, you could do what I just said. You just have multiple weapons to swap between and you're golden. Repkit, you want one with amp, ideally with multiple charges, so that you could take advantage of multiple spread launchers if you wanted, or while mobbing, you just always have the option to do more damage there. I have cooldown reduction, which is pretty good. Alternatively, you get like elemental damage. That would be nice as well. And then for your knife, you know what I'm going to say. Penetrator Augment Knife is very, very good for this. We want as much damage as possible in a window. Technically, you could manually land a crit, but I mean, this is just going to make it better, and it synergizes perfectly with Dragon's Breath. For mobbing, something that's cool is using the Shokunai. It has 7 charges on it, and it's going to give you more movement speed. So you can just like spam it out and get more Dragon's Breath uptime while you're actually mobbing. But I found using the Penetrator Knife is good enough, and it helps you out when there's NPCs that have a ton of HP. Then we have the class mod, the Raging Furnace. The only reason for this is just more points into Dragon's Breath. That's about it. You ideally would want like 4 points into Dragon's Breath and then 3 into Maiming Strike, or 5 and 2. That would probably be ideal. And then you'd want like some amount of gun damage or something like that in the bottom roll. It always rolls with incendiary damage, so that's pretty nice. And the plus 2 points into the green skill, I'm pretty sure is useless. Yeah, action skill, crit. I think that may apply to Force of Nature, but you don't really need the extra damage from that as far as I'm aware. So this is how we set this up. And then for our shield, so I have a mobbing shield and I have a bossing shield. That's the only thing I swap with this build pretty much ever. I have an amp shield. Any amp shield will work perfectly fine. This is just the one I happen to have on me at the time. A Watts for Dinner would work as well, because you might get the extra 25% damage from the shield being full. And then when we're mobbing, because mobbing is, I would say, the weaker side of the build, we use a Fireworks because it will just, anytime we kill a mob, fly all over the place. Fire damage is good. You want to go for fire damage or shock damage. Shock is nice because we have the node where we shock, where when we shock mobs, we also set them on fire. So this could be good for, you know, melting certain shields or something. I just use fire, but, you know, it is what it is. And then for your enhancement, I highly recommend getting one with increased ricochets so that just helps out your mobbing. And then for bossing, you would want one with sequencer so that you gain multiplicative damage. I believe it's multiplicative damage because it says bonus. multiplicative damage immediately after using your spread launcher, which is quite nice. So mine is a very good jack of all trades here, and it has gun damage and fire rate. Ideally, you'd have like gun damage and shotgun damage because the fire rate isn't really going to help you here. And if you don't have a legendary one, don't worry. You could just like get a purple one that is for mobbing, and then for bossing, you could just swap to one that has sequencer on it. It doesn't have to have anything else on it, just sequencer, and you'd be perfectly fine. When it comes to firmware, you want to do 2 high caliber because the gun damage increase from this is a multiplier as opposed to additive, so it's just 10% damage, which is pretty nice. And then you'd also want 3-piece Deadeye if you're using crit knife, which you should be using. It gives you a lot of crit damage. It's like technically bug, not giving you as much damage as it should, but it's still really good. And as you can see, I don't even have it because I ran out of firmware stuff, because making a lot of build videos makes you run out of firmware. So I could do even more damage potentially. And then with my Spec Tree, we have In the Zone. This helps you for your bossing just a little bit. I just like aim down sight for like 2 seconds before I shoot out my spread launcher for a little bit of crit damage and gun damage, and it actually is quite noticeable. And then 1 shot, 1 kill. Most of the time I don't even use. The fireworks will actually consume this, so it's not like very great, but it's not bad either. And then I use I Am a Gun. The only reason I do this is because Force of Nature is technically action skill damage, so if I need the extra damage, I get a little bit from that. Sorry for the menu spam. Alternatively, you could do Now with Caffeine if you just want your onslaught active more often, but it doesn't really help you when you're mobbing, to be honest. And then I go into Bullet Train just to get a little bit of extra damage. Brutal You This isn't great because you're not hitting a lot of time, so you're not really going to stack this up very much at all. So that's why I don't opt for that. Technically, Best Defense would be pretty good if you have enough spec points, which I don't. So this is how I have it set up. Alright, here I just want to show you guys a little bit of mobbing gameplay. So all you really do is just pop your forward skill, and then for the first few kills, your damage is going to be a little low because you don't have the buff from Berserk fully stacked up. So that's okay. For your first few kills, you could just crutch the knife damage from Dragon's Breath a little bit, and then you just run around blowing guys up. Hopefully your Firework Shield helps you out a little bit. And if you see a mob that's tanky, such as those like Thresher guys, you can pop the amp in addition to the knife, and then will do quite a lot of extra damage to them. Once you get everything stacked up, you'll be blasting. Using your actual action skill isn't really going to do anything. It will give you a little bit more damage if you need it, with like priming enemies, and then you can detonate the prime by meleeing or something. Typically, I don't really use it when I'm mobbing. Maybe if you find like a really tanky mob, and then use it. And then here's like the only downside of the build is my Berserk is probably going to run out here. I think I cleared that area quite quick. If I can get a kill here, then I can, okay, there we go. We got it rolling there, but sometimes you'll lose your Berserk, and all you have to do is just repop your forward skill. One thing you can do is repopping your forward skill also will refresh the duration on your current Berserk, so you won't lose all your stuff. That is pretty good. So if you're like in a moment of downtime running between these vaults, I'd say the vault is kind of not exactly a great representation of like actually playing the game. If you're doing a drill site or something, you'll literally never run out of your Berserk because you have more than enough time to like reset it fully and then go and get it back. But even if you did, you could just like make sure to pop your Berserk, and then you're good to go. And then one downside I will say with the build is elemental eater mobs are quite annoying. If I run across one, I'll tell you what I do. Usually I would just use like a spread launcher and make sure to not actually use the knife on them. But otherwise, if I don't have a spread launcher or whatever, like a charge available, or I messed it up or something and did accidentally use the knife, you could use like a Malawan beam tosser weapon I have. You can see right there I refreshed the duration on my forward skill there, or my Berserk. So I still have it up, and I can still run around and blast the mobs, no problemo. And I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but one thing you can do with the Hot Slugger is like spam the reload key. And if you spam the reload key, it will kind of like circumvent the animation there, so you can just like get off your next shots a little bit easier. And it's fun to play, aiming for the head. You do much more damage if you actually do land the headshot, so I will say I guess there's like a little bit of a skill gap there, but it's not a big deal. Like, you don't necessarily have to always land headshots, you'll still kill stuff without it. And you can see the fireworks are putting in work there. Now we got a big boy file guy, so I'll just throw out my knife, throw out the spread launcher, boom. It missed most of it, honestly. Oh, I think the fireworks help out quite a lot in these guys, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, there he goes. Just got ricocheted to death, to be honest. I barely even had to hit that guy. Use the bathroom real quick there. Alright, so when I go to a boss, the only thing I swap is my fireworks over to my amp shield. And Everything else just remains the exact same. That's the literal only. Oh. You don't want to do that. Okay, we're not on cooldown. Good. Alright, let my shield go up. So the only thing I do is make sure to preempt my spread launcher. I'll use a Repkit here. And then as we go down, pop my Onslaught action skill here. And then as he spawns, I'll just throw a little knife into his face. The knife, and then I'll shoot him, and I'll try not to blow myself up, kind of just shoot in like the middle. And then I'll pop the thing there, and then boom, he instantly dies. And if he doesn't instantly die, you could shoot off a second spread launcher shot before you pop your forge skill there, and there you go. All good. And then the one downside of this character, is that you cannot reset your forge skill at the med vendor. So if you're farming bosses, all you want to do is just press quit menu. It's the downside of this character that the forge skill is so good. Certain bosses you can kill without the forge skill perfectly fine, in which case you don't actually have to do this. This is just the tankiest boss in the game, and it is particularly resistant to fire damage because it is shock and the other thing. Shock shield and armor, right? So I'll just demonstrate it yet again here. For you guys, you can do it pretty consistently. So the knife, down sight for a second, bada bing, boom, boom, blow him up. Use a forge skill, and he instantly dies, ticks for 1 million there. And that's with him being like super, super weak to our damage, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, recommendations, leave it down in the comments, of course. Build link will be posted down below. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching. See you guys later. Peace.